Thank you for joining me so that together we remember the Holocaust. My name is Joe Unger, your host, and this program is brought to you by the Southeastern Florida Holocaust Memorial Center and Greater Miami Jewish Federation. Every story coming out of the Holocaust is amazing, some more amazing than others. Today we have the more amazing story, if not the most amazing story, because we're going to talk about two men who came together in the horror and stink and stench of the Nordhausen concentration camp, and who quite by accident, through the facilities of the Southeastern Florida Holocaust Memorial Center, were reunited 40 years later. We have with us today Joe Gleber, who is a survivor of the Holocaust, and Seymour Zipper, who is a liberator. Before we get to their actual stories, let me tell you how this whole thing came about, because that really is perhaps the most important and amazing part of the story. The Southeastern Florida Holocaust Memorial Center is dedicated to the memorializing of the oral and video testimonies of survivors, liberators, and protectors of the Holocaust. And in fulfilling this function, these interviews are done. The people volunteer. They come in, they are interviewed, their tapes are then indexed and made available for historic study. As part of this ongoing quest to memorialize these testimonies while the people who were actually involved in the events are still with us, an interview was done of a survivor, Joe Gleber, our guest today, who told his story, his amazing story, of how he lived through the hell of the Holocaust and came to be, at the end, at liberation, in the Nordhausen concentration camp. And there he told, during the interview, of having met a young soldier who was a liberator of the Nordhausen camp, and he told the interviewer his name. His name was Seymour Zipper. At that time, Mr. Gleber had not seen Mr. Zipper for almost 40 years. The interview was taken, and it was made a part of the archives of our center. Some 3 years later, a liberator who had volunteered to have his testimony taken came to the center and was assigned to one of the dozens of volunteer interviewers who conduct the interviews for the center. It happened, by coincidence, that that interviewer was the same interviewer who had interviewed Joe Gleber almost 3 years before. And she remembered that the name given to her by Mr. Gleber of the young man that he had been looking for 40 years was Seymour Zipper. And Seymour Zipper was the man she was about to interview. So this interviewer put these two gentlemen back together again after 40 years, and they are here today as our guests to tell their stories about how they came to that one place in history that put them together. Joe, let's start with your story as a survivor. First, tell me where you were born.
I was born in Częstochowa, Poland. It was a city between Warsaw and Krakow in the center. But I can't explain now exactly what Częstochowa. I think it's a very famous city because Catholics from all over the world play over there. They pay, you know, pilgrimage there because it's a holy city.
A shrine is located
Shrine is right. The Madonna is over there.
And
Black Madonna.
How large a family did you come from?
We were 6 children. I mean, four brothers and 2 sisters.
And where did you stand in the line of your brothers and sisters?
Well, I lost 2 brothers. And I lost 1 sister.
Older or younger than you?
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest.
And the youngest remained.
And what age were you at the beginning of the war?
Beginning 30s.
In the beginning 30s. And what did you do at that time?
Well, I was a cabinet maker at that time in Poland. And I had a shop, and I've been working.
Were your parents still living at that time?
Oh, sure.
And your family lived in the town at
That's
that time?
right. But during that period of time, I lost parents, sisters and brothers, also 2 children because I was married. I was married in 1936, March 15, 1936. During that time, I lost 2 children, parents, and sisters and brothers.
Joe, tell me what you remember about the beginning of the war, the day the war started. Do you remember?
Well, I can tell you from the beginning, from the first day, I find out the nobility of the Nazis the first day, September 2nd, 1939. How comes I remember the first day? The building which I lived was a very huge building. And when the Nazis came to Częstochow at that time, they took the whole building and they made a field post. Or, a field post.
Headquarters.
Headquarters, So everybody was chased out. They confiscated everything, everybody which had something, so they confiscated. They gave me a piece of paper. After the war, you're gonna collect money for that. I had a big radio telephone kin, which a few weeks before I bought it, I paid 165 zlotys. They took everything away. Anyway, short after that, it was ghetto. After ghetto started, concentration camp. I've been working at a concentration camp in Częstochow. It was many things happened. I can't make it short.
Let's go back just 1 second. You said you went into a ghetto. Was this ghetto actually in the same town?
At the same town.
But you were moved to another house?
Of course, I have to move to another place where the only ghetto was permissible to live.
And you were at that time with your wife and your 2 children?
I was with my wife and my 2 kids, yes.
And your parents at this time were?
It was still there.
Still there.
But the liquidation of the Jews took place in 1942. They took everything away.
The ghetto was liquidated?
Yes, everything was terminated.
At this time in 1942, what happened to you and your family?
So I and my wife was sent to Hasak Pelceri, which was actually, it was a factory of ammunition, and we've been working there.
With your 2 children?
No, children, no.
What happened to your children?
Children, they took away in 1942.
They took them away?
They just took them away, and everything went to Treblinka. Yeah.
And you and your wife went to an ammunition factory?
I with my wife worked the camp. She was in a different barrack, and I was in a different barrack.
And what about the rest of your family at this time, your parents?
Oh, they just vanished. I don't know where.
And your brothers and sisters?
No, they're not here.
Just gone?
Just gone, yes, that's right.
So in 1942, you and your wife find yourself in an ammunition factory working?
Ammunition factory, working there all the years.
How many years were you there?
Till 1945. Till January 1st.
January 1st, 1945.
1945, we were chasing out because they said that the Russians are coming. We have to go now to Germany, and in Germany you're going to be saved.
And you were still with your wife at this time?
No, I was separated with my wife.
You had not seen her?
I didn't see her at all.
And you don't really know what happened to her?
I didn't know what's all about.
So January 1, 1945,
1945,
you're off to somewhere you don't know where?
I don't know anything about.
And where did you end up?
So they sent me to Buchenwald that time. Being in Buchenwald less than 2 weeks, they sent me to Dora, also a concentration camp. From Dora, I have to play many tricks to show that I am sick. I'm not capable to work anymore. And when I was sick, being in that barrack, they took me out, not just me, but it was a group about 15 or 20 being in the barrack. They showed how they hang people. 10 people were hanged every day. So I saw, once I did something else. I wanted to make business. At that time, I had a brother at that time. So we made business. I was in the carpenter shop, and he was working outside. It was very cold at that time. So I made business. I gave my portion of bread. I bought by a Russian a few potatoes. So he gave me the potatoes. He had my portion of bread. I said to my brother, "You're going to make now a soup. You're going to share your portion of bread. I'm going to give you some of the potato soup." So we had a meal. while having those potatoes once, outside, I didn't peel off, but I wanted to wash the potatoes at least. It was a little faucet outside. While washing the potatoes, an SS man came along, and he knocked me over my head. He said, why did you steal the potatoes? I said, I didn't steal it. I received it from Russian. Show me the Russian. Well, I couldn't show him anything. Anyway, he said, if noch einmal das passiert, dann wirst du erschossen. Which means, if I'm going to see you once more with the same thing, I'm going to kill you. Anyway, he took away the potatoes, and I didn't have anything. Well, I was continuing with those potatoes anyway. About 2 weeks later, he caught me once again with potatoes, washing potatoes outside. Say, now I got you. He almost killed me that time. He said, tomorrow you're going to be by the tower. In tower, it's by the admittance there, from the concentration camp. They put it to the how you call it, basement. And from the basement, they hung the people. So I knew when I found out that's for sure I'm going to be dead the following day. But when being outside, I saw the people, while they hung the people, I saw a truck on the other side. I asked, what kind of a truck is over there? They said, this is the sick people which go to Nordhausen. I said, yeah, now I'm going to be sick. I left the whole group over there. I jumped up on the truck. I'm among the sick that time. That's how I came to Nordhausen.
And when did you get there, Joe?
Well, it was, to be exact, I can't say the date. The date, I can say the date when I met Seymour. This was 8 days before Passover.
1945.
1945.
Well, Joe, we know how you came to the horrors of Nordhausen. Let's find out how Seymour got there. Seymour, tell me about how you came to be at Nordhausen.
Well, I was with the 104th Infantry Division, and we actually started from Cherbourg, and we went across, and we were just at the outskirts of Nordhausen that the division was attacking the town.
What was your rank at this time?
Corporal.
And what were your duties?
I was in the medical department, just strictly medical. And the next morning, they took the town, and we went in. And when we
Where is this located exactly?
Well, I think it's
generally
near Nordhausen.
Yes.
I think it's up near the Harz Mountains.
In Germany?
Yeah.
Okay, so your unit then took the town?
Yes. In fact, the night before, the Germans lit up the town, so our planes came over and actually bombed it because they didn't know what was there. And quite a few of the inmates were killed.
They bombed the camp?
The whole camp, yes.
I see.
And we came in there, and I walked in, and I couldn't believe what I saw.
All right, now, when actually did you get to the campgrounds? As it was being liberated? The first people to come into the grounds?
No, the infantry division liberates the thing another way. They captured it. Now we came in with the medical, and we tried to save a lot of the people who were dying.
How long after the military had been in did the medical people follow up?
We came in the next day.
The next day.
And
what were your specific duties as a medical team?
As a medical team that time, the inmates, quite a few of them were emaciated. There was no strength, and they couldn't even pick up their heads to eat. And we tried to feed them liquids, anything, just to keep them alive. And we'd go from one place to another, and you'd find another one dying and another one dying. But the horror of the thing, when we came in there, we saw the ones that had died piled up like cords of wood, one on top of another.
You have some photographs that you took.
That picture there shows there's two civilians carrying a dead person there, and they were taking them from that big pile of dead people and spreading them out. The second picture there is where they were.
Well, the first picture, now we're back to the first picture. This is the people taking a dead body to a central area.
That's right. And the central area is right there where you see them all spread out on the ground.
And the second picture would be a picture of the area where the bodies were all spread on the ground.
That's right.
If we can get the second picture. And these are actually the sites that you saw when you came
Yes,
into the camp.
Definitely. Yes.
How many dead people would you estimate
Well,
were in the camp?
Impossible to say that.
And
Impossible.
what provisions were made to get rid of these people so that they didn't create a further medical problem?
Well, that's something that we didn't stay there long enough to see that. In other words, we were just there for about 3 days, and then we had to move on.
What was the condition of the living prisoners that you found there?
They were emaciated, and they didn't have the strength to pick up their head even to get any food. And we forced down some liquids and anything like that. That's
Were you able to sustain any of the people there, or were they dying as you were
we
treating them?
sustained few of them, and few of them died as we were going through. In fact, we evacuated about 3 blocks of homes, garden apartments, and we put them all in there, the ones who were alive. And as we were treating them, we go from one room to another, and another one would die, and then another one would die. And that was the whole situation like that.
Were you ever able to find out what the prisoners were in the camp? Were they political prisoners? Were they Jews? Were they prisoners of war?
There was
What
a
type
mixture of
prisoners?
everything. It was political prisoners. I found Spanish, French, Jews. There was a lot of political prisoners there.
Were there any women in the camp that you found?
I didn't see any.
No, all male prisoners, no children.
I didn't see them either.
Okay, so you came into Nordhausen then immediately on the heels of the military troops,
Right.
and you were working trying to save those that were still living. Tell me how you first saw Joe Gleber.
I saw Joe Gleber, and you recognize a Jew. He had that Jew painted on the back of his jacket.
Was it spelled out?
No, just a J, a red J.
Just a J.
A red J. And I went over to him, and he didn't understand English at that time, and I spoke to him in Jewish. And when I spoke to him in Jewish, he embraced me, And we got to talking, and then we had supplies, and I gave him quite a few of the food supplies and everything while we were working with everybody else. And then while I was talking to him, he telling me that he had a aunt in the Bronx. And I contacted the chaplain there, and they gave him the address of the aunt in the Bronx, and he was supposed to have contacted them. Because then we left, and I didn't know what happened.
You did take a picture of him, though, don't you?
And I took that picture of him, what you see over there.
Can we see that picture, please? That's the picture that you took of Joe Gleber in 1945
Right.
at Liberation. What's he wearing there?
Can I
Seymour?
explain?
Yes, please explain the picture, Joe.
Okay. Now, the first day of liberation, I found out by Mr. Zipper. Let me explain you how. Bombs were still flying. It was a terrible occasion that time. But then I saw a Jeep, and Mr. Zipper was on that Jeep. He said, "You're all free now, you are liberated." I didn't understand what he meant because he spoke in English. Then finally he said in Jewish, "Where is Ayid?" I said, "Ayid?" I was surprised. A Jew in a uniform? I never knew that. So I said, "I'm Ayid." We embraced each other like he said before. Then the first thing, he took out cigarettes, chocolate, anything he had in his pocket, he gave it to me. I had of that time that striped uniform which I had. I said, "We haven't got where to sleep. You see here all the corpses. We can't do anything." So he said, "Show me where's a house. I can help. Maybe I'll be able to help you." We went into the first house. There was a woman there. So he said to me, "Ask the woman who lives here." I asked the woman, "Who lives here?" She said, I live here." "Where's your husband?" She said, "He is on the battlefront." And I explained that to Mr. Zipper. He said, "If this is the case, keep those 3 guys here. I will supply you with food. And let them have it here." In the meantime, he asked, haven't you got something for this man to put on?" So this jacket which I wear over there and the pants, that was from that German woman, which Mr. Zipper explained to her to give it to me because the pants I wore, it was short and the jackets were torn up.
Let's see that picture one more time.
Understand?
These pants and jacket that you wore are the ones
This
that the
was
German woman gave you?
German woman gave it to me, yeah,
Because
thanks to Mr. Zipper.
Thanks to Mr. Zipper.
Yeah.
And what
And
happened?
something
Yeah,
else.
go ahead.
You see a towel over there? A towel.
A towel?
I didn't have any
Shirt?
any undershirt. So she gave me a towel. I put it on over there. This is a towel, which I have it.
Okay, now, at this point, you and Mr. Zipper were together.
You see over there, the packets over there, which is filled up, cigarettes, chocolate, whatever I had.
How long were you two together at that time?
Oh,
Well, I was there for
Excuse me, let me go
Okay,
further.
go further.
He said, then I asked Mr. Zipper, where you come from? In Yiddish, of course. He said, New York. I said, how far is the Bronx in New York? I didn't know Bronx or anything else. I said, I got a large family in the Bronx. He said, do you know the address? I said, certainly. I didn't know how to pronounce, so I wrote down the address. So Mr. Zipper said, well, I know that section very well. That was Intervale Avenue, if you are acquainted with the Bronx.
Not very.
This was Intervale Avenue. I said, my aunt lives there. And I don't know how it happened, but Mr. Zipper told me today, he gave to his captain or whatever, chaplain, he gave my name, and he sent it over to my aunt. Through the radio, WC, no, how is that?
EVD.
WEVD, they announced my name. There's a survivor in Germany, but that name, maybe a relative will come up and find out something about him.
How long were you two together at that time?
At that time,
2
well, I
days.
was there 2 days, and another day I was working someplace else. We left after 3 days, so.
So you left, and that, as far as you knew,
was
was
it.
the end, except for this picture that you had.
I had that
your
picture
camera.
in my duffel bag when I came home.
Tell me about that.
That
What
was in
happened to that picture?
1945, and I found out, and I had the address of the aunt. So I took the picture and I mailed it to her in the Bronx. And a few days later, she contacted me. She says, if I ever come up to the Bronx, try to visit her. Well, I have a sister who didn't live too far away from his aunt. And I went up there and I went up to the house and they let me in. And I walked into that room and this man looked very familiar to me. And sure enough, it was Joe.
And that was 1945.
Yes.
What'd you feel, Joe, when you saw Seymour again?
Unbelievable. I didn't believe my own eyes. Well, at that time, it was only a short time away. I spoke already English, and I was dressed differently. Well, there's a picture which I can show, which is different between this and that.
Well,
This is already with my child, which is born here.
And this was at that time.
Yes.
And after this contact, you lost contact with one
Right.
another.
Right.
How did you come to be interviewed by the Southeastern Florida Holocaust Memorial Center?
Well, Mrs. Meeser came once to me. First of all, I wrote a book. My title of the book is Memoirs of a Survivor. And Mrs. Meeser asked my permission to read the book. When she read the book, she found a name, Seymour Zipper. And incidentally, she also interviewed Mr. Zipper.
My
And
wife
so-
did that.
And so it happened that Mr. Zipper, she found out, lives here in Florida, and when I lived in Florida.
And she put you back
Well,
together again.
Can I
Yes,
say
please
this?
elaborate.
My wife interviewed me and sent that whole interview to the organization, and that's where they found my name there.
And they put you together again, and this would be some almost 40 years
That's
after
right.
you had seen each other. Tell me what you felt like when you saw Joe again after 40 years.
Well, the time I saw him, I think we came up to the house, came up to his house, and we sat down and we talked and we took some more pictures again. I'm sorry we didn't bring him along with us, but
The most happy occasion of my life, that's all I can say.
and then the organization had a reunion there with the Liberators and the survivors. That was about last year, wasn't it?
That was in the Body
Last April.
University.
Last
Yes.
April. That's when I saw him again.
So you saw him again.
Yes. Now we still see each other now.
Seymour, what special meaning came about because of your experiences in the Holocaust? What meaning does it have for you today, other than this magnificent relationship that you have with Joe?
Well, the meaning to me is, it's very hard. Sometimes I talk about it and I get very emotional. And
it's a very emotional subject.
It is, and I do get emotional about that. In fact, the night before we entered Nordhausen, I got a telegram that my son was born that same night, which was...
That's the irony of birth and death.
That's right.
Yes. So you saw the whole thing from beginning to end in the space of one day in your experiences. Right. Joe, what is the special meaning of the Holocaust to you?
Well, I can only say people have to learn that this should never occur again. I said this is the most best organization in the world, the Holocaust Memorial, the Southeastern Florida Holocaust Memorial Center. This is the most holy organization in the whole world, because they teach, they show the world what happened. At the same time, let future generation learn that those things shouldn't happen again, and not just to save the Jews, but to save the whole world, the whole humanity.
That's the importance.
That's the important, I think, yes.
Do you think it's important to answer those who would deny that the Holocaust ever
Certainly.
occurred?
Positively.
And what better way to do it than by the actual testimonies of such as you and Seymour?
I can only say one thing. Supposed to be made a special curriculum for the school children, not for adults, but for children from the beginning, to show the children what happened in the world if they go in the right way and let not come to certain things which happened before.
So that it can never happen again.
That's right.
I want to thank you for joining me so that together we remember the Holocaust and we're able together to share a truly amazing experience of two people who came together out of the fire and the hell and the smoke and the dirt, but yet came to understand so much about the meaning of brotherhood and the meaning of caring one for the other. And I'm so proud that the Southeastern Center was able to be a small part of bringing these people together in its overall function, and that is to memorialize the testimony of those who unfortunately were part of the Holocaust, so that it could be guaranteed that never again could such a thing happen. So I want to particularly thank both of you gentlemen for sharing these experiences with us, which at times are painful but so meaningful, and I am sure will be now part of our permanent record of amazing stories of the Holocaust. Thank you very much.
Thank you.